And here we go. Business Not As Usual podcast. Vince and Mike coming at you. How are you, Mikey?
I'm doing great, Vince. What is up with you?
Well, let's just dive right into it. Let's cut the chitter chatter. Let's get at her. Let's get at her.
Wow, you're still fired up. We can't even do salutations. Okay,
we're not even gonna. I'm gonna jump straight into me. I was working with a friend recently on a transformation project that they were working on, and they are trying to design, build, construct the future of this organization, and it keeps running up against these same roadblocks. And then you hear the things that you normally hear. Oh, the business people don't know enough about the future. They're not visionary enough to see as if like you need some divine, but it got me thinking about the importance of vision, because as I look at it from the outside looking in, and just sort of, being there on the periphery, supporting and just giving some advice. To me, I don't think it's the fault of the business stakeholders in that they don't have the vision or they can't see the vision. I actually think that the vision has not been articulated for them. And I thought that was an important thing that maybe we could talk about today is, why is it important that you articulate a vision of the future? And then building upon that, why is it okay for you to, or why you need to give permission to your business stakeholders to embrace that vision? And we've talked about vision in the past, so I don't want to rehash that, but to take that vision and then bring it into reality and make it meaningful for them, because at the end of the day, they're going to be the ones that own that future state when it gets implemented.
I wholeheartedly agree, Vince.
Yeah.
I'm not going to. So I think we did talk about this in our presentation on the missing pieces of digital transformation about driving decisions down. So and the only way you can do that is actually setting the vision and also setting the guardrails of, iterations of where you want to bring the company. Because there's nothing worse than coming back with new journeys or processes, and then the people that haven't articulated the vision go, no, you didn't hit the mark, or that's too far, or you didn't go far enough. And it's not the fault of the people in the workshops that they haven't. It's the fault of the people that have the vision and haven't, or they don't have a vision, haven't articulated it. Because how is someone supposed to know where they're going without the senior leaders that are saying, we need to do this transformation, but what's the transformation for? What problem are you trying to solve? If you can't articulate that vision, the workshop, those people are just always spinning, which is, I think, what you're getting at.
Yeah.
The team doesn't know how far to go. Are we going too far? What are the guardrails? Why are we actually doing this? Is it just for technology, or is there like what's the deeper business problem and where we're trying to go? So I completely agree. It must be very difficult and confusing for people trying to build. Are they trying to hit it out of the park? They totally blue skying, or they're trying to be more reserved? It must be hard to articulate that when you're trying to give requirements.
Yeah. And I mean, I want to.
What you're talking about.
It's that you're bang on, and I actually, as you were talking, it triggered a story that I used to tell in one of my keynotes around Mad Men, the show Mad Men. And they did this story arc where they were working with his first name escapes me, but it was the guy who started Hilton Hotels.
Oh. Wasn't it Connie or something?
Conrad Hilton. Thank you.
Yes.
Connie Hilton. So Connie Hilton goes in and he says, I need a new ad campaign. I want the moon. Give me the moon. And
Right.
so Draper and team, they go away and they come up with this campaign. They bring them back, and they're like, "Here you go, and here's the moon, and here, you know, they give their pitch." And he was like, "No, it's not what I wanted." Like, okay, but we gave you the moon. And he
Right.
was like, "Yeah, but you gave me what I asked for, not what I wanted." And so it was this idea of like, but you didn't. And so when I've told that story in the past, people in the audience and people gave me another suggestion. It's like, and this is why I love in-person stuff. They're like, they used to have a boss who could say to the effect of, "Go get me a rock." And, you know, being the good business analysts that we are, is like, okay, well, how big? What color? What size? What shape? What density? What type of rock? And the answer was always to the effect of, "I'll know it when I see it."
Oh yeah, the ever
Right?
popular "I'll know it when I see it."
Right. And so how are you, like, you are going to spin and spin and spin,
N-
trying to meet that expectation. And it is an impossible ask.
It's a lazy ask.
Very.
It's someone hasn't taken the time to think about where they want to go, what they want to see. I'll know it when I see it. You'll be there. You'll never get the right thing.
Right.
Like, you know how many things you'd have to iterate through?
Right.
And it's already
Because it's
tough
easy.
enough. It's
Yeah.
already tough enough trying to iterate and trying to come up with these things. But without a vision that you're like, okay, they're trying to go there.
Yeah.
I'll know it when I see it is like the worst. That's like a pop quiz. That's like lazy teachers that give pop quizzes.
Well, and it almost feels like it's an excuse to then dump on, well, that you didn't do that, and you didn't include that, and you
Yes.
didn't,
It's like,
and
see
you
how
didn't
smart I
think
am?
about that, and
Yeah,
yeah. And I hadn't considered that "see how smart I am" angle, but it's an opportunity to be just a critic, as opposed to
right.
being the person in the arena who's actually building the thing. And so what it led to, because everybody knows that I'm there sort of as a just a sounding board, was just a stream of calls after the fact, and meeting invites and coffees. Oh, the coffees I had.
Too bad you weren't in person. You'd be getting all kinds of free
Right,
coffee. You're
exactly.
getting screwed right now.
To discuss, you know, hey, I like, thank you for trying to get people thinking of that future vision, but we haven't been given the permission to know where those boundaries are, to know
Right.
how far we can push, to know, you know, what can we eliminate, what can we enhance, where are what are the parameters. And so, you know, vision is important. And yes, we did touch upon it when we did our session, and talked about driving decisions down. But I think this episode should maybe take a different angle, which is, you know, how do you ensure that your vision, first of all, how do you articulate your vision? And then how do you ensure that you have extended that vision out to the people that are actually doing the work? Because I read a thing the other day that the one of the biggest illusions in communication is that it's happened. So
Exactly.
you know, how are you ensuring that you have articulated and defined and driven down that vision to the people that are in the room? But then also, how are you ensuring that they are going towards that North Star?
Well, the first thing is,
Let's start at the beginning.
The first thing is the people that, and I don't know who it's entrusted. It could be entrusted at any level. Whoever is, that person has to sit and think about what that vision is.
Right.
They have to do work. And then in some form have it that's consumable. But then that person needs to articulate to the teams what the vision is, and not just once. They have to constantly going around. They need to do road shows about the vision, because you're selling the vision. It's like everything is selling, everything's story. You are storytelling constantly. You, like, for the first time, or like a booster shot, you're constantly getting in front of people, telling what that vision is and telling that story, because that's how you keep the guardrails on. Remember, people are in workshops, they go down rabbit holes, they're in the weeds, and sometimes they may forget. Yeah, you told them like 7 months ago, but it's not enough. It's a constant refresher, which on the one side, it helps the vision, but also reinvigorates them, or invigorates them for the first time to go, right, this is why we're doing these things. This is where we need to go. These are the guardrails. It's constant communication. And without it, transformations, either that's why they don't hit the mark, or they start to spin, and because that vision hasn't been constantly reinforced.
Yeah, and you probably, I was doing like the
I was, but I was like going.
No, you were on the flow, and like I for once in this show's history, I did not just jump in and interrupt. But that's what I wanted to say about that reinvigorating, re-energizing, right? Because it is that reminder of what it is that you're doing, and then why you're doing it. So so that communication needs to be constant. Not every day.
Never over communicate.
No, but also, I think, I don't know, what is it better to over communicate or under communicate?
I said you could never over communicate.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Never.
I thought you said never over communicate. Yeah, I
no,
don't
no,
think
no.
you can.
That's a myth.
Well, I think you can. I mean, if I'm constantly in your ear, hey Mike, this is the vision. Hey, how you doing on the vision? Like, I think that gets annoying. But like, if I'm literally standing over your shoulder,
that's just annoying.
That's just annoying. Like, yeah, I get it, man. I get it. Leave me alone now. Let me do some work. But I think if you've got, a frequent touch point where you are reinforcing the vision, and having and enabling and engaging conversation can help define that scope, define those guardrails on a continual basis, because you may find that those guardrails shift as you go further down the road. You may have to bring them in tighter. You may be afforded the opportunity to expand them.
Correct. But I think those guardrails are super important, because
absolutely,
again, if that workshop doesn't know how far they're going, or if you've never told them, then they go too far, and you're like, you think we're going to do that? I don't know. How was I supposed to know we couldn't do that? Or, oh, we were looking for something much bigger. If you say that after the fact, it's on you. You should have told that workshop what you were looking for. It's not coming back and saying, oh, that's the work. I was looking for something more. Well, if you were looking for something more, you should have articulated it, because the people would have given it to you. If you articulate it, people, that becomes the goal, and people are goal oriented, and they're going to try and meet that goal. So they'll be closer to the goal if you can articulate it.
Right. Yeah, they're not going to give you something you don't want out of spite. I mean, they should. No. I mean, I would say maybe an overgeneralization. People want to deliver good work. They want to do good things. They want to deliver value. They're not going to design something that isn't what you want unless they don't know what you want.
Right. It's like we're designing for the customer, but you don't have any personas up on the wall. They've never been presented. You haven't. So how do I know?
Let's play that out. Let's play that out. Go again. Say that line.
Okay.
You're designing for the customer. Go ahead.
We're going to design for the customer.
Who's our customer?
Everybody's our customer.
Oh, okay.
And they want stuff.
And seen. Like, how do you know what to do?
So if you haven't done the research and you haven't done the work to say, here's my persona. My persona is Vince, and If you don't know what product, who you're building the product for, because it's not for you. If you don't know who you're building it for,
and what problem you're trying to solve,
you're going to make judgment calls based on yourself. Well, I don't know who I'm building it for, so I think we'll do that. As opposed to, well, we're building this for Vince, and the problem he has is this, and I think this will help solve his problem. You're much closer to giving Vince what he needs as a persona. But if you haven't done that, how do you have a vision of the product? And it's the same thing. That vision isn't up in front in those workshops constantly. And again, I do feel it's workshops are hard. You lose sight of the bigger picture, because you're by the nature you're trying to figure these little things out, and you go down rabbit holes. The constant talking about the vision brings people back up. Got it, because they're gonna go down rabbit holes. It's kind of their job, right? And you need to keep bringing them up with the vision of where you're going.
Right. Yeah, and it's important then that, okay, so now we've talked about the need to articulate the vision and to drive that vision down. From the workshop participant's perspective, it's now incumbent on me to take that vision and make it much more practical. And so,
absolutely,
right. So now it's up to me to do the work, the practical work. And again, it's not that the person who defines the vision isn't providing practical value. They just have something different to do. But now it's up to me to say, okay, you wanted a product for Vince. This is the problem that Vince needs us to solve for him. Now we can start to, gather requirements, prototype, build something, experiment, see what it is that aligns back to that vision, but then also practically solves the problem. Because it may be, and I'm sure this happens, it may be that the vision as it was originally articulated is wrong, right? It's possible, right? As you start going down that road of practicality, you may find that some of the things that were part of that visioning exercise don't really work, or work in a vacuum. So if in a perfect scenario,
in a perfect world, that
feature works, but in the real world, not so much. But you still have, and this is where I like visions that are very aspirational, that aren't overly prescribed. I almost like having a vision that is not boxing you into a solution. And I think all too often that is what you get, is this is the solution, go make it happen. Right. And so I like the, hey, let's, and we've talked about this in the past, right? Let's make our customer interactions more seamless, because that is going to lead to happier customers. Like that to me is just, that's a fine vision. Now you probably need more behind that, but as a starting point, I think that is big enough and broad enough that now I can go into, okay, how are we going to make that happen? How are we going to bring that to life? And what are we going to do to address that pain point and bring that vision to reality?
I think your vision needs to have whys attached to it, right? So everyone has a vision of digital by default.
Mm-hmm. Why? Like what? So what? To do what? Right.
Correct. So then people kind of regurgitate that. So why are you building a digital platform? Oh, because we're digital by default. Mm-hmm. That is not the end game by digital by default. Mm-hmm. Digital by default is so you capture things that you can then use later. You can use machine learning. You can use it for prompts. You can use it to accelerate processes. We're not just building, digital platforms. Like, that's not the end of the game. That's not the end game. Right. The end game is to do stuff with that, to gain efficiencies, to be able to manipulate the data, to understand better what customers need. And you only do that because you intake information through data that comes from digital platforms. Mm-hmm. So there needs to be the why behind that vision. So you just can't throw things out there lazily and then go, that's the vision.
Right. Yeah, I'm having like flashbacks to the discussions that I've had over the past week that sort of led to this podcast episode. Because like everything we're talking about, I wish, you know what I wish? I wish I
What
could.
do you wish, Vince?
I wish we could have done this episode a week ago in anticipation.
If
And
only
then,
we knew.
if only we could see into the future. And then I could go and say, everybody in this workshop, go listen to this podcast right now. You should absolutely go listen to this podcast because this is the problem. It is a very and so even we're digital by default. I mean, I heard that countless times. And to the point where someone actually brought up an issue that was impossible to do digitally. And the room was stunned. What do you mean? What do you mean we can't do that digitally? And my probably smartass comment was, I guess digital's not a magic bullet. Like you can't now there are some other challenges where
like I can't give you a coffee digitally.
I'm not going to get into specifics. There were other issues.
Is it the equivalent of well, like I said, wouldn't have been awesome if all these people were actually buying you coffees? Yes, I can't give you a coffee digitally. I can't.
Right. Yeah, I mean, so it was one of those
physical component.
But yeah, there's that need for physicality, and so it was one of those moments where, like, it almost felt like if we were live, like in a conference room,
in person,
people would have been looking at each other like stunned, like, what do we do now? Eyes wide open, like what?
We've come at an impasse.
And it's to me, it's the reason why when you are building services, when you are designing processes or designing products, you don't want to you want it to be agnostic of the delivery method. And I'll come in from a process perspective. To me, there should be no difference for an organization to deliver a process digitally versus by mail versus in person. The process, in terms of the steps that you undertake, should be the same. Now, that's where you can then leverage behavioral economics and nudging to nudge them to your preferred channel. Right. So you maybe, let's say you're offering those 3 intake channels, but in person is the most expensive, and you will know this because you've collected data, I hope, which we talked about last episode. But in person is the most expensive. Digital is the least expensive.
Right.
Phone is somewhere in the middle. Well, I don't want people coming in person. I can't stop them, but I want to make it. I can either make it harder for them, or more positively, I can make it easier to use one of the other channels. Right. So if you, let's say I'm fulfilling a transaction, if you call, it takes 3 days. If you come in, it takes 7 days. If you do it online, it takes 2 hours. Right. Like, make it easier, but the steps should be the same. And so I get troubled when I see, okay, here's our digital process. Here's our phone process. And they're not this, like, they should be the same. They should be identical. And then the rules that govern how they navigate, that's different. But the process should be the same.
Well,
it freaks me out, man. It freaks me out.
It goes back to the fat processes. You've created for the same transaction two or 3 different ways of how to do it.
Right.
And your employees now have to remember that or figure it out or go, oh, here's there's no way they're going to do that. I mean, it's digital by default because you're intaking it in a certain way, but then the work is the same. And so it shouldn't be different because it's just going to create issues. And we talk about efficiencies and saving money. Again, yes, the digital channel is might be cheaper, but it also affords you with other things that you can manipulate and look into, like data,
like that capturable data. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but the work, you can't make three. Like, let's, how about if you have 7 channels? You're gonna have 7 different processes for that one transaction.
My friend,
he's gonna die.
I worked on a project probably 10 years ago at this point, where I did have, they wanted, the client wanted a different process by their 7 channels. It was the most time-consuming exercise because you had to build on-ramps and off-ramps for everything. Like basically every step had an on-ramp and an off-ramp, which is, I started digitally. Now I'm calling you on the phone, and then I'm going to fax you something, and then I'm going to come in person. Like it was a nightmare to coordinate and to make sure that everything fit together. And it was a Visio nightmare.
Well, that's the assumption that people don't channel jump.
But this is what I'm saying.
One channel, they're just going to stay in that channel. That is not a process that has any velocity or any scale.
Yeah.
Or is able to what's the word I'm looking for? Like there's no way that's a stable process, because at every moment
so much variation.
There's too much variation. Yeah.
Yeah. And now think of, just to put a real pin on this one. 7 channels, phone, fax, in person, online with help. Like it was ridiculous. Times about 300 processes.
Correct. And this is why you can't have different ones.
It was exhausting. I was glad to be done of that one. But anyways.
I mean, you could create them and Visio them out. A human is not going to do them.
You have to remember 2,100 processes.
Like, no person's going to do that.
No.
Your customer service reps aren't going to do that.
No. And all it led to was increased
chaos,
variation, increased chaos, lack of
probably
consistency.
Service levels were probably non-existent.
It was a bona fide nightmare.
It was a debacle.
It was bad. But you know what? Like this is what a lot of companies do. And fortunately, I don't want to say a lot of companies do. I haven't seen that type of behavior in a while. But it's still
there's been an evolution for sure.
I think so.
And just a mental note, just because there's you give a customer access to every channel, guess what? They're going to use every channel, and they're still not going to get their transaction done. So all you've done is actually increased your spend on service delivery, and the customer still didn't get their stuff done. So you need to limit the channels to the ones that are the most efficient. A, for the customer, but B, for the sanity of your employees, because you can't have, especially if you go down the route of, there's a different process if it comes in by fax.
Yeah. Well, this is where my statement, eliminate, don't automate, is even more meaningful. Like eliminate entire channels, for example. Like get rid of them. Like, why is anyone still talking about the fax machine in 2021?
Like, it's outrageous.
It's ridiculous. That thing should have died 30 years ago, and yet here we are. But the in many instances, I see designing for the exceptions, for those edge cases.
Oh, absolutely.
And it becomes unmanageable, right? I get it. Not everybody has a computer or has access to a computer or wants to do business online. I have many family members who still go to the bank teller because that they like it. Okay, whatever. Not for me, but they like it. but they are the exception now. They are no longer the
Correct.
rule. They are not. To quote the great Vilfredo Pareto, they're part of the 20%.
So when we say like digital by default or digital first, what companies are saying is that's the first, like that is the interaction we want people to do.
That's
everything
the vision. To tie it back,
everything else is a service exception.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't be starting with the exception. You start with the vision and then go, here's like the exceptions that we have to handle. Right. Not, what about the guy who's like left-handed and limps?
Right.
I don't know. Can you tell me how many of those people are that have to do this transaction for our company? Like, don't start with it happened once.
Yeah.
That's a service exception.
Or let's pick on our people that has an obscure Italian dialect from southern Italy, and it's only spoken in this one town in Calabria. Why not? I'll just keep it going here. And we need, like, how are you exactly? So call it what it is. It is an exception, and you know they are. It's not to diminish and just call them exceptions or edges. Like they're still important transactions. Build a mechanism to deal with those in a one-off.
Correct.
But don't design and expand your process for 100% of the people. And I think this is where defining that vision is most important. And part of that vision, as we're talking about it, is we want to make things. We want to make a utilitarian product. We want to make it the most useful for the most number of people. And we'll deal with the ones that don't fit that mold. We will still deal with them. And we'll deal with them probably in a more personalized way. But we need to balance the needs of our business with the needs of our customers.
Which brings it around to the vision.
Right.
And when I said, there's not that first articulation of a vision with whys behind it, and then the rearticulation, those rabbit holes that we just talked about become the project. They become what is built, as opposed, and then the vision is not met.
Right.
Will never be met. And so bringing it circle, that is the importance.
Yeah.
For Vince and all of you, for the vision, articulating the vision.
Because here's just to take that one step further and make it a little bit more meaningful. I think those rabbit holes, those exceptions, they become new requirements that need to be built.
Yeah, and
you're paying for, and so you might be paying for something that never gets used. Right.
Correct.
One of the ways that I think, like, if you look at how most people use a product like Excel, like they use maybe 10% of the features. Excel is super powerful, right? They use maybe 10% of the features,
and they change none of the defaults.
Right.
And change none of the defaults.
But then it makes sense why a product like Google Sheets comes along and says, all right, well, what are those 10% of things that people need to be able to do, and just builds a product that does that.
Right.
So there's a ton of extra cost if you're going to indulge all of these exceptions and go down all these rabbit holes, and that drives up the cost of your project, reduces the cost benefit. It becomes unnecessary. So set that vision. Stick to your vision, and make sure that you are constantly communicating that vision, because if you're not, the ramifications are very costly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
With that, that has been vision. But where do you, our lovely listeners, stand on vision? Do you like having this almost seems like a rhetorical question. Do you like having a vision of the work that you're doing, or do you just want to go in blind?
Or you love spinning on and going down rabbit holes.
Maybe share a story on a time where vision saved you. I think that maybe let's go that way. Share a story of a time where, knowing the vision and understanding the vision saved you from going down too many unnecessary rabbit holes. And you can get us at vincentmirabelli.com and michaelmartino.ca. Michael, this has been the Business Not As Usual podcast. We will see you in the next one. Always a pleasure. We'll see you in the next one.
See ya.